Dan is joining us from Wisconsin, and we have Partop, and we have Stephen. Partop is in India. We have Stephen in the UK, and we have Joseph from Lagos in Nigeria. Did I get everyone? Forgot myself. Frank Falvey here from Cork in Ireland. So we have three speakers on today. Victor is a new speaker, and Victor is going to do a talk about what is it, Victor?
Protecting your data in Azure SQL database.
Okay. So, and Joseph, you're going to carry on with your weekly talk on.
Yeah, well, the series we started from creating and managing objects on-prem and in the cloud.
Okay. And Partop, you wanted to do a piece on.
Uh, Not true this weekend. Probably if I have time, is then I can do something on OpenAI
Yeah,
or
no
AI
problem.
Studio.
So,
I
Victor,
think
you can share your screen there. Do you see down at the bottom it says present?
Okay.
And share your entire screen, and then I'll put it up.
Okay. All
So
right.
this week is
Okay.
our biggest number, Dan, for sharing. Looks like we have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We're streaming out to 12 different platforms all at one go. So we have
Yeah,
four YouTube channels,
that's
four
amazing.
X accounts. We have four LinkedIn accounts we're streaming out through. So hit another record. So Victor, I can see your screen there protecting your data in Azure SQL database. So
Ye-
carry on.
Yeah. Yeah. So, do I have the floor?
Yeah, you have
Yep.
the floor.
Okay, I've been introduced, and I'm just going to try to do something just a bit around the line of data protection, and we're going to be looking at Azure SQL database. I'll just do a bit of explanation along the way, and then I'll just do a few things in the console, and I won't take much time. So now, someone said that apart from the human resource in every organization, the data resource is the most valuable of the resources. So that means protecting your data from unauthorized access, unauthorized tampering, or loss becomes something that is very important. But we also need to know that data security is it's a process, it's not an event, it's something that is ongoing. So it's something that will require multiple layers of defense. So we're going to see how Azure SQL database, which by the way is a fully managed cloud database service, how it's going to be giving us some defense in-depth approach to data security. We are going to be looking at some of the features and some of the tools that are built into the service. So we will be moving this way. We'll talk about defense in depth, a military term, by the way. Sorry, that was a bit too fast. We'll talk about defense in depth, and we'll talk about the CIA triad just to lay some groundwork. And then we'll look at some of the features of Azure SQL database. We'll look at things like availability features. We'll conclude and maybe a few minutes in the console. Now, that's what Defense in Depth actually tries to achieve. Now, Defense in Depth basically is a data protection strategy. By the way, also, it's a military strategy anyway. So, what it does is it creates concentric rings around your data because more often than not, when somebody tries to breach your environment, the target is usually this one here, the data. So what Defense in Depth tries to do is it it creates additional barriers to different layers within your environment. So it's in this way it creates a comprehensive approach to cybersecurity because of these multiple layers. So what that does is that it allows organizations to be able to better protect what they've identified as their assets from different kinds of threats. So it's not just a technology thing, it also looks at hardware, software, network. Like we can see, typically it starts from the physical access, goes into IAM, which is going to be covered by Entra, looks at things like the perimeter security, the network security, which will be covered by access control lists, the compute security, the application security, and finally, of course, the data security itself. Now, again, there's another concept here which is called the CIA triad. And by the way, we are not referring to the security organization that is based in the United States. The CIA basically is short for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So we're going to also be looking at that. Confidentiality here means that we need to only allow access to data to people that are authorized or to services or entities that are authorized to view that data. And then integrity means that we want to ensure that our data is accurate, it's protected from any form of unauthorized modification. And then availability also comes into play, meaning that data should always be accessible and usable by all of the parties that we have authorized, and should also be protected from unauthorized access, such as denial of service or distributed denial of service. So we're going to be using those two terms from time to time to try to explain how Azure SQL database tries to protect data. So let's get into the nitty-gritty. Now, Azure SQL database, by the way, is a fully managed service. What that means is that the line of shared responsibility is moved up a notch. So most of the down level management is going to be done by Microsoft, and you basically be interested in tuning your database and, of course, building whatever features you want on top of your data right there. So that's what it does. So we're going to be focusing on a lot of those things without really looking too much at the down level things that you will be doing on day to day. So Azure SQL database supports authentication. Now, that authentication means that whatever entity is trying to gain access to your data needs to prove that they are indeed who they are. And there are different kinds of methods for authentication, including the now very well known SQL Server authentication, where the details of the login is going to be managed within the master database in the service itself. We also have Entra ID, used to be called Azure Active Directory authentication, where the IAM service, that is Entra, is what manages the login credentials. We also have managed identities, of course, which will be helping to prevent unauthorized access to the database. So after authentication, we've got authorization features. Now, authorization is being able to do what you ought to do. That's very important. And there are lots of role-based access control, or RBAC, and even database level permissions available. So this is going to be controlling access. So you're going to be having things like roles and logins coming in here. And depending on the kind of role that you have, what you will be able to do is going to be different for somebody that has another kind of role. Now, while we are doing all of this, it's important to ensure that we are granting the users, the logins and all of that, only the minimum. And I use that word very, very, very broadly. The minimum permission that is required to do a specific task. And that's a key thing when we are talking about any kind of security at all. Means that you should only have all what it takes to be able to do that, no more, no less. Now, apart from authentication and authorization, we also want to be able to know exactly what has happened. That means, of course, auditing is after the fact, but it's also important that we enable auditing of our database activities. We want to know who tried to get into our database. We want to know who had access, what they did. We want to know if changes have been made to our schema. We want to know what kinds of security events have happened within our database. And what this does is that it allows us to be able to, well, have a record of what has happened. And in some cases, of course, it may help us to provide evidence for compliance and auditing, because from time to time, in line with best practices, organizations need to open up their systems for external auditing, for compliance, and even regulatory reasons. So these are some of the things that we've got. And then at the network level, now we are moving a bit higher. At the network level, of course, we have within the Azure environment, you've got things like virtual networks that's going to be providing a secure and isolated network environment where you're going to be dropping in all of your resources. And then, of course, you want to be using things like network access control lists, which is going to be also further protecting your network, and even the security groups itself that's going to be giving you some instance level protection or virtual machine level protection, basically controlling what goes in or what comes out. But again, this may not be fully applicable to Azure SQL database, since Azure SQL database is a managed service. But of course, we also have options to install SQL Server within virtual machines, where that is going to be very key as well. So we will be using all of these instruments to be able to control access to our virtual machine. And we also want to be doing a lot of monitoring. There are lots of tools available to monitor. Of course, there are some tools that are native to Azure, like the Azure Monitor, the Azure SQL Analytics. And then we have tools that are native to SQL Server itself. That is the dynamic management views. Now, these dynamic management views will allow us to collect and analyze data about the metrics of SQL Server. And then, of course, some other tools like Azure Monitor and all of that will allow us to monitor logs, to monitor events, and all of this monitoring will have one aim, and that is to help us identify whatever has happened and allow us to better troubleshoot issues, to optimize performance, and of course, to detect anomalies. So moving on, we also have some other Azure native things as well, Azure native methods of knowing what's going on here. We've got things like threat detection. Now, SQL database uses Azure Defender for SQL, and Azure Defender for SQL is going to be giving us advanced threat protection and vulnerability assessment. So it's going to be detecting alerts. It's going to be detecting potentially malicious activities such as SQL injection attacks, brute force attacks, and data exfiltration. And it will be giving you in real time remediation and recommendations that you can use to be able to close whatever gaps may have caused those breaches to even be attempted in the first place. Now, beyond having Azure security features by way of threat detection, within Azure itself, we've got what is called encryption. Now, encryption is going to be allowing us to abide by the C in the CIA, that is confidentiality. So there are different kinds of encryption available in Azure SQL database. We've got the transparent data encryption, or TDE. We've got the always encrypted security enclaves, column encryption, and all of these things will be ensuring the confidentiality of our data and will be allowing us to protect our data from unauthorized access, of course, preventing the compromise of our data that is housed within our database. And encryption for Azure SQL happens both at rest, that is, of course, where the data is encrypted within the server itself where it is stored. And there's also encryption in transit. That is when our data is in flight. It is moving from one server to another within the Azure environment, or even from one server to another server that is in maybe a third-party cloud environment by way of egress traffic. So Azure SQL database supports all of that as well. So there's encryption at the column level, and of course, all of these things is going to be ensuring that the data we've got within our databases stays confidential, even if the physical storage of the network is compromised. So that is supported as well. And then we've got something that's a bit more something we can relate with better, which is the dynamic data masking. Now, dynamic data masking is the feature of Azure SQL, and indeed all of the SQL products from SQL Server to Synapse Analytics and all of that. It allows us to mask sensitive data, such as maybe credit card numbers, email addresses, and it allows us to obfuscate these characters, helping to prevent unauthorized users from querying or even viewing the data, while it will still allow authorized users to still see the original data. So that is very, very also an important feature of Azure SQL database as well. Then further on, we also have some availability features. Now, availability, now the A in the CIA is very important for data security. And there are lots of features and tools that allows us to improve availability to protect our data against damage and malicious attacks. Now, we have a lot of availability features as well. We've got multi-geo replication, we've got backups to URLs, and we've got clustering, and a lot of all those things that we have. I'm just going to maybe demonstrate one if we've got enough time within the console itself. Then we have some other high availability features as well. Now, high availability here uses an architecture that automatically replicates the database across multiple nodes within the same region or even in a different region, and gives us a transparent failover in case of the failure of one node. So it ensures that the database is always accessible, it's always online, even in the event of a region-wide outage, which of course is a very, very unlikely event. But even when it does occur, the multi-geo replication is going to ensure that all of our data is moved to another region asynchronously, such that if the entire region has got maybe an outage, then our data has been moved safely to another region and our applications will still continue to function. So that's just talking about geo replication further here. Azure SQL database supports active geo replication, allowing us to create up to 4 readable secondary databases in different regions, giving us the capacity to fail over automatically in case of a region-wide outage. And this ensures that the database is resilient to disasters, provides geo-distributed access, and of course continues to be scalable. And as we begin to wrap up on this aspect before we get into the console and just do a few demos here and there, we have backup and restore. Now, backup and restore is very, very important. So within the security or the operations landscape, if you choose not to do anything, at least you should have a backup of your data. So backup here, Azure SQL database being a managed service allows for the automatic performance of full, differential, and transaction log backups of the database. So, and it stores them in geo redundant storage, and of course, allowing us to be able to restore the database to a point in time within the retention period, which can range between 7 to 35 days. But we have the ability to enable what is called long-term retention that allows us to retain our backups for longer than that. And we might want to do that if we work in specific industry verticals, like maybe in healthcare or maybe in financial services, where there are regulations that stipulate that financial or healthcare data would need to be backed up for at least in some cases up to 5 or even 7 years. Azure SQL database also supports that as well. So to conclude, as I begin to wrap this up, and we'll just spend a couple of minutes in the lab environment, Azure database has a lot of security features, and it's a reliable cloud database service. And of course, when we intend to protect Azure SQL database, we should always try to adopt a defense in-depth approach. We should be using various features and tools from the physical security all the way down to the data security. And then, of course, that's going to be allowing us to benefit from some of the best practices. And of course, it will allow us to stay resilient in the event of any possible disaster. And I think that's basically what we have for this section. I'll just stop sharing and then move on to the other aspect here. I'll just go and share my console screen in a minute, and we will just continue from there. So I'll go to my console. I'm going to Azure environment here. I hope I've got I have a lot of windows open here. Okay, I think this is it. Okay, please confirm for me that you see a screen.
Yeah, we can see that screen, yeah.
So what we want to do now is I had created, just to save time, I'd created a resource group here, and that's the resource group there. I've already provisioned the virtual network and the subnets. So I just want to go ahead and provision Azure SQL database. And we're going to see some of the security choices we make, even from when we are provisioning it. So I'll just go to Azure SQL, and that's it there. I'll just go ahead and choose it. And we've got a lot of options, but I want to choose this one, create and manage a SQL resource from a single view. So I'll go ahead and select that. And we see from this console here, we have different options. This is an unmanaged option here where we can create virtual machines with SQL Server pre-installed. But what I want to do now is this is going to take us a lot of time, manage instances. So I'm not going to do that. We are just going to use a SQL database, and I want to create a single database. Then I want just to go ahead and click on create, and it prompts me for the usuals. It prompts me to choose the resource group, to choose the database name. I'll just call it DB demo VBA, for example. That's just my name. And then I don't have a server yet. I'll go ahead and create one. And your server name has got to be globally unique. So I'll just give it a name that I think will be pretty unique. Okay. And then I want to choose a region in Europe. Remember, if you live in Europe, there's the GDPR you've got to worry about. So whenever you are creating resources, one of the things you want to bear in mind is there are requirements on compliance and regulation that you've got to abide by. And one of it is data sovereignty. So you want to ensure that all of the appropriate data stays within the European Union data boundary. So that's very important. We see the authentication here. We have the option to use Entra only, but I like to use both. And then it prompts me to set an admin, which I'm going to do. I'll just set myself as the admin here. And then I'll put a username and then a password. Okay. And then I confirm that. Doesn't match. So okay, so it now does. Okay, so we have That's to create the server. So we have the server created, and then we can go to networking here. Of course, it gives us the cost summary. I'm choosing the most cost-effective option, of course, and we have the option for connectivity here. For this one, you have the option of enabling public endpoints or private endpoints, but you can skip it and enable it later. So I'm going to leave it this way. You've got a connection policy here, and here it talks about encryption. Now, TLS 1.2 versus TLS 1.3. Now, what do we need to know here? TLS 1.3 is actually more secure, but you've got to be careful there. You've got to be sure that all of the clients that are going to be connecting to the server are equally TLS 1.3 compliant. If they are not TLS 1.3 compliant, unfortunately, when a connection is attempted, that connection may fail. So I would leave it as TLS 1.2, not the most secure setting, but for backward compatibility, I'll just leave it at that. And then we've got some options for security here. You've got the option to enable Azure Defender. Of course, you can enable it. It gives you the option to start a free 30 days trial. Highly recommended. And then you have other options as well, server level. And this is where you want to configure always encrypted by secure enclave. Now, what that does is it prevents those that have privileged access to SQL from actually being able to read the details of the database. You know, one of the challenges you'd have in database administration is, well, it may be difficult to lock out the admins from being able to read whatever is in the database. And that's what Secure Enclave does. For a more secure configuration, you want to turn that on as well. And by the way, I don't see any effect on the cost. So we'll move on from there, and we'll go to some additional settings. I usually like to, for demo purposes, to turn on the sample database. And the sample database is usually the AdventureWorks database, which you can use to do a whole lot of things. And then you may want to target, well, not exactly a hard requirement, but a highly recommended requirement, because tags allow you to do a lot of things, allows you to easily search through your resources, allows you to do things like back charges if your organization supports that. Maybe you are creating a database for the finance department and you want to back charge them for the cost of running the database. Tagging is going to be helping you to do that, to better manage your cost. And if you are happy with all of the settings, you want to do a review, and then you want to go ahead and create. And it goes on to create it. So I'll just quickly dive into the other thing here, which is encryption. So right now I have SQL Server Management Studio, and I want to just show how we can encrypt the contents, the columns within the database. Before I wrap up, I have about maybe a couple of minutes. I don't want to take too much time, so I allow other speakers to also come on in and do their thing too. So I'll just get into, I don't seem to see, yeah, get into SQL Server Management Studio and just demonstrate something called encryption. So I'm connected. This is actually a connection to a server here. So I'll just go and go to a table. For example, let's say customers table. And I'll just select top 100 rows from the customers table. We can see here that all of the columns are in plain text. We can see the phone number column is in plain text. Now, and what encryption does is...
The screen is not being shared anymore.
Oh, really? Sorry
Yes.
about that. Let me share afresh. Okay. Confirm that you see, please.
Yes.
I believe you can see the screen now. Okay. Yeah. So it's a pretty simple thing. You have two options to encrypt data within a column. You've got scripts that you can run, but I'll just, for simplicity's sake, I'll just go ahead and we can see I've done a query for the database. I've just done a query all, querying everything, all of the columns and all of that, and we can see if I do want to encrypt the customer table, I'll just right click this and I would say, for example, encrypt columns. Now it prompts me here telling me always encrypted is designed to protect sensitive information, blah, blah, blah. And I just want to follow the wizard. So it gives me a list of all of the columns that I want, that I've got. And if I want to encrypt one, say I want to encrypt the phone number column, I'll just click on it. And I can choose the type of encryption. We've got two options between randomized and deterministic. I think the deterministic is actually a more secure encryption scheme. I'll just go ahead and select that. And I already have encryption keys in place. If you were doing this within Azure, you want to store your secrets within the Azure Key Vault, of course, so that you have one single source of truth in Azure Key Vault. I'll just go ahead and just prompt. It goes ahead to, it looks at it, it says, okay, you have the option to generate a PowerShell script to run later, but I want it to run immediately. And once I click on finish, it begins to do the encryption operation. We'll just give it a few seconds. Once it's done, I'm going to go ahead and query that table again, and we are going to see if the column in question has been encrypted. So, okay, I'll close this, and then I want to do a fresh query this time. I'll select top 100 rows. I think I lost that again.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we see here that we still have the column for phone, but it's entirely unreadable. Compare that with what we had here. What's going on? Okay. I think when I switch screens, it just stops sharing.
Yeah, I think you need to click on like probably like entire screen, something like that. Share entire screen.
Okay. Okay, so we see here, this is where we were before. But if I go ahead and click the next tab where we have the new query.
Again. We can't see your screen.
Okay. Okay, we can see now that everything is encrypted. So I don't want to shoot this beyond this point. We can keep a couple of minutes or one or two questions if you've got any as I just wrap up this. So thank you very much for listening. If we've got any questions, I'll be glad to take them.
Great presentation there, Victor. Didn't see that kind of stuff before, so very interesting.
Yeah,
questions?
I think that was a great presentation as well. And also, coming from the defense in depth, going through CIA, and then, hitting the SQL encryption, I think that was amazing. Yeah, and I think personally for me, I still learned something today.
Thank you very much for your kind words.
Yeah.
Very good. So up next we have Joseph. So Joseph, do you want to share your screen with us?
Okay, so from my end, unfortunately the application we're using does not have emojis. I would have thrown a lot of them. The speech presented by Victor was so energetic, and I can't be intimidated anyway. It was so academic, and we landed in the console, and you showed us a lot of things. I truly appreciate the ground you've opened already for me to come in. So my own end I will just try to share my screen now so that we'll continue from where we stopped last week. I have two monitors here. I don't know how it will be. Share. Okay, entire screen. So I will share this one. Share. Okay. So let me know when you can see my screen.
Yeah, we got it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Last week, while on the call, I promised I was going to put up a document that we are going to be using going forward. So I was able to do this piece, and we've done some stuff with creating OUs, creating users from on-prem, and then we went to the cloud. We created users in the cloud. We tried to do some few things last week. So today, I just want us to continue from this document to follow it from one point to the other. And for each opportunity I have on this show, I will try to make sure that we are using this for now until we wrap it up, and then we can jump into some other things just so we can have a structural way of having the conversation. So I want us to get into creating groups in AD. This is where we are right now because we've created users last week. So we want to create group in AD. Step to add members or users to group. We can just try to add one or two users to a group in AD, and then we can also go to create group in M365. So maybe we'll go into creating users in Entra ID as well. That is Entra ID Admin Center. And also try to go into Exchange to see that we can create user from Exchange Online also. So having said that, I'm just trying to see if I can bring up my Active Directory here. So this is my Active Directory environment that we had walked through last week. So if I want to go to where I want to keep the group that we want to create in AD, so I'll just go to tools. One option is for me to come to Active Directory users and computers. So I'll come here, and then I would expect this to come up. So in the last class, I mean, I say the last class, the last show I had created the OU called July OU. So just in case you don't know how to create OU, you can just simply right click here, and then you will see new, and then you will see organizational units, and you can just create an OU. So inside the July OU, we are trying to create a group. So if we right click here, we have new, and then we have group. So if you click on group, we only have two types of group in AD Windows Server. So you have the security group, and then you have the distribution group. Then for the group scope, you have a domain local group. You have the global scope, and then you have the universal scope. But we just want to create a security group. So what is even a security group that you may want to also check? So if you look at this document, we'll have the document is saying, so you may want to check this out. So Active Directory Security Group. So what are they used for? Active Directory has two forms of common security principle, the users and computers only. So if I come down here, security group can provide an effective way to assign access to resources on your network. So if you have users in that group, you can give them access to a particular resource within your network. So I'm just going to bring back my Active Directory just so we can move on. So we have two types. That's why I want to create a security group. So what is the work of a distribution group? So a distribution group is actually going to create a group that has an email address, one email address, and with that one email address, an email can be sent to that email address, and it gets delivered to every member within the group by simply sending an email to that group, to that email address that the group has. So, but what we want to look at is a security group in this case, and that group is we may just want to call it Azure Group, GROP. So since the security group, we'll click on OK. So this group is here. So what it means is that, remember that if we have to create more users, for example, we only have inside of here, we have this user Azure Show. I think we also have Joseph July as a user here. So if we want to add this user to that group, for example, what we do is we'll come here, this Azure Show guy, we can say member of, and then we can click on add, and then we search for Azure here. Then we can do check name, and then this is the group. So we click OK, and then we click on apply, and then OK. So this is we coming to the user and adding the user from the users end into a group. So we can also come into the group, and then you check members, and then you click on add, and then you can search for a user. Let me check a user that I have here again. I think I have Joseph July, right? So if I come inside of the group, I can say members, and then I will say add. I would search for Joseph, who wants to be a member, who I want to add to that group, and then it's Joseph July. I can say OK, and then I will OK this, and then I can click apply, and I click OK. So that means inside of this group, Azure group, if I open it and I go to member, I'm expecting those people to become the member here. So what have I shown? I've shown you how to go to the users and add the user to a group, and I've also shown you how to go inside of a group and add a member, right? So to also see the list of the members there. So this is how it flows in the AD. So now looking at, so that we can just see, we are seeing the two groups. For the other type of group, if we come here to say group, so what we would have is, if we turn it to distribution list, and then we call these AI distribution, then we can say, okay, we still want to leave it as a global group, and then the scope, right? So we can do this. So clicking on this, double clicking on this, we open the group for you, and then you can set an email address for the group that's people are going to send emails to. So for example, if I open this, I know that my domain is this. So if I have this domain here, I can come here to the distribution group, and I say, okay, the email is AI, and then at joseph.local. So the domain, I can just okay it, and this is me creating a distribution group in the AD, right? So we've also seen security group. Now we want to come into the M365 admin center. Remember, if you set up synchronization between the on-prem environment and the cloud, these groups are going to get replicated to the cloud, but you cannot make changes to their attributes in the cloud. For distribution group, you can I think I attempted to add user from the cloud, and I got an error even as well. So all the management of the groups are going to be done here, but you can see the members also when you go to the cloud. Same thing as this. So I just want to pull up my M365 environment. This is just to show you how that works in the Active Directory. So I'm just coming back to this document, and so the steps that I followed are all here. So I will show you where to get these documents just before I round off the call. So that's me trying to create a group in the AD. So creates a new group in AD, and then step add a user to a group. We've done this. So we want to come to this creating group in M365. So if you come to the M365 environment, you would see that, I showed something last week, which I learned recently and is very useful to me. I must again show it. So coming to all admin centers you can, in Microsoft Cloud, you can do cmd.ms. So it's just going to give you all the admin centers that you will likely want to go work. So this is something very useful to me. I'm sure you are going to also find it useful also. So if I come to cmd.ms, I would see that I want to go into the M365 admin center. So I will just click on this and it's just going to bring up the environment for me to sign in if I had not signed in. So this signed me in directly because I was already signed in here. So this is just trying to replicate the same thing. So I'm going to close this particular tab, and I may also close one of these just so we can keep our work together. So coming down to this place, if you are an Exchange administrator or you are a global admin, you will be able to see the option here to for teams and group. So under teams and group, you have active teams and group. So if you click on this, you are going to have this open for you, and it will display all the groups that you have in your environment at this time. So you have option to also now create a group. So if you come to creating a group here, you would find out that you have option to, excuse me, I'm just trying to show you something first before I even move on. Are you sure you've not entered in there? Yeah, I want to just close. So here I have teams and groups. So for this is teams and M365 group. I have distribution list and I have security group. Now for add a team, or here is add M365 group, is under or grouped under teams and group. For distribution list, this is just here. You have add a distribution list. So we are on M365 admin center, because when we go to other platforms like the Exchange admin center, you would see something like this dynamic distribution list. So for here, you would see security, and for security groups, you have two types of security groups. So you have just a conventional or a standard security group, and you have a mail enabled security group. So having said that, we are going to start by creating M365 group. So when we come here, we'll have add a team, and then we'll have add M365 group. I will jump this, but while creating this, I will explain this, because in a way, if you hit on create a team now, you are going to be creating a Teams enabled group directly. And the condition will be that all the owners here must have Teams enabled license before this can be successfully saved. But you can create this group here, and some members would not have Teams. Some owners will not have Teams enabled license, and the group will still be successfully created. But if you want to convert this group to a Teams enabled group, you must make sure that all the users, all the owners, have licenses that give them access to Microsoft Teams. So we're just going to hit on add a M365 group, right? So we'll just do this. So this case, you would see something around name of the group. So I may just call, I hope I'll be able to keep to a convention. Let me just call it AI show. AI show. Okay, maybe I'll try and remember that name. So for this, you would see that here is grayed out, right? Until you either provide a description or just merely clicking here, it will activate next for you. So you can't skip by not clicking here. You must at least click, but it doesn't really count if you type anything in the description or not, but you can click on next. Because these tenants, you are not going to be the only administrator, it is usually advisable that you provide a description so that other administrators would know why this group was created. So we can just say this was used as a demo during the AI show. So it's just fine that way. So we can do next. Now there's something I want you to take note of. If you don't add an owner here, you will not be able to move on, But if you go to the Entra Admin Center to create a group, you do not. So I was able to spot out this difference in the documentation. In the M365 Admin Center, it does not automatically make the administrator who is creating the group an owner of the group. But until the administrator who is creating the group adds someone to become an owner, he cannot move on to create the group. So, having said that, to get this button here activated for us, we must add at least one owner. So, and here is saying select up to 20 people to join the group as owners. You can add more people later, but you have to add one. And Microsoft recommends that you at least have two owners of a group so that one can function in the absence of the other. So we're just going to make the first name here as the owner of this group. So if we do that, you can see that the next icon is activated for us. Now, the next thing is optional at this point, because if you look at when it was members, owners, you couldn't move on. But with this one as members, you have options to move on now without adding any member. But if you choose that you've had all the people or all the users you want to add as members of this group, you can of course go ahead and create and add them by clicking here and selecting them to add. But one very important thing is that you can only add 20 at instance, and then if you want to add more, of course you can get back to the group and add more members. But let's even say I'm not even adding anybody at this time and I'm doing next. So if I come here, I would say AI show, um, okay, AI show, or let me just say AI underscore show so that it will be clear at the domain. So if I have multiple domains already, I will have options to choose the domain that I have. So now is the privacy of the group that I'm creating. So it's saying public or private. So public is that the group can be joined by everyone without getting an approval from the group owner. So anyone can just join. Now for a private group is open to everyone to join, and group owners are the ones that can add members to them. Group are not open to everyone to join, but it's only the group owner that can add member to them. So the privacy is that. So I can decide to make this group a private group. So for now, I'm not assigning a role. When we get to role assignment, I will explain that also, because that is a topic on its own that will be covered in subsequent meetings. Now, this is saying add Microsoft Teams to your group. Now look at this condition. What it means is that after creating this group, I want to see it replicate as a team in Microsoft Teams. Now, for me to be able to have this replicate, all of the owners must be must have a license that includes Teams. I'm saying this because I while I worked as support engineer, I've had a case that came and it appears that they did not have access to use that team in Teams. And this was what I discovered after a very long research, that the users who are the owners of the team, there was just one person who does not have Teams license. And that is because he is the administrator account. And admin account are not full-fledged accounts, so you don't need to give them licenses. So because of that, the team could not be converted. The group could not be converted to team until we had to remove the administrator from that group. And this button here, this checkbox here, was activated for us to hit on create a team for this group. For now, because Adele, who was added as the owner of this team, has no license at all assigned to the user. That is why you cannot have this activated for you. So if I go back and I give, say, E3 license to Adele, or give the user, even if it is Teams Essential license, then this button is going to get activated for Adele to be able to have access to Teams. So we're just going to do next. So if we do next, this is just going to give us like a summary of what we are doing. So this is Azure AI Show. I mean, this is AI Show team, group. And then if you look at it, this is the email address. It is private, it's disabled. So if you are not okay with any of these any of these settings, you can of course click on edit and just go back to have those group created. So we can hit on create now. So this would make the group ready. So this is saying that this guy within 5 minutes is going to be present in the active teams and groups. So I'm just going to hit on close. And even now, I will expect it to be showing up already. It doesn't really take that 5 minutes. From my experience, it is almost immediate. So let me just give it a try and let's see. So that is the group there. So how do I add members to a team here? Remember, a group here. Remember that in M365, in the Windows Server environment, we did the same thing. So we're just going to come here and say, okay, so if this opens now, you would have option to go to membership. And then when you come to membership, if you want to add more owners, you can click on add owners, and then you can search for which the owner you are looking for. Maybe I just want to look for Grady, to add Grady as an owner. So I can click on add. So I can also come back now. There are 2 owners at this point. So for me to add members, I'll just come here to members, and of course, I don't have any members, so I can come here. Now let's read what is here. This group has no members. Start adding members to the so that they can work together. So we can just come here, and then the list of the users in the environment we just load, and then we can add them to this group. We have other methods that you can use in adding them to the group. Or let's just quickly say we have added this member to this group, and this was the same thing that we did in the Entra Admin Center. The Windows Server environment. So what if I come to active users again and I want to come into a user's account? I know that Alan is not a member of that Azure and AI show. Azure, I'm calling Azure AI show, is not a member of AI group. So what I would do is, here is saying groups that this member belongs. So I can come to manage groups and I can assign membership to this group by just saying this. So let's see, this is what is here. So you see that this is the same experience with what you had in the Windows Server environment. So having shown this, we are dealing on M365 Admin Center, right? So we just want to come back to this place and want to go to Entra Admin Center. So if we come to Entra Admin Center now, what do we have in Entra Admin Center, and how do we create the same group in Entra Admin Center? And if we go to Exchange Admin Center, how do we create that group in Exchange Admin Center? So all this is just what I want us to quickly compare so that we can see that there are slight differences, but all these are achieving the same thing. But some features, some liners are there for you to spot out the difference while creating from here and while creating from the other end. So let's just close this, and then this is Exchange, but I want us to do from Entra first. I don't know why that did not open. So but let me just give it time to load quickly. Okay. I still want to do from Entra. I could go to Exchange first, but I would prefer that we have Entra open. Come on, Entra. Okay, so Entra is here. So again, when we come to the Entra Admin Center, we see down just here, we see groups, and then we would see all groups. So this is how it is. Remember, the other one was teams and group from the M365 Admin Center, and this is all groups. And then you are here. The next thing you see is you click on new group. So if you click on new group, it is where you have the option to choose the type of group that you want. Remember that at this point, you did not see teams group, you did not see distribution list, you did not see mail enabled security group, but you only see security group and you see M365. Remember, if you want to do a very straight comparison, you can put them side by side and you'll be able to see them. So it's until you do them this way, you may not notice those differences. So I'm just going to come here. So you look at it. So we have security group there, and we do not have mail enabled security group, but we have this one in Entra admin center. So if I also come here to Exchange, so that let me just parallelly put them together now. So if you come to Exchange, you also see groups, and then under add groups, you see you have here, you have M365 group, you have distribution list, you have dynamic distribution list. So if you go to M365 admin center again, you will not see dynamic distribution list, but you will see distribution list. So just in case you are looking for where to create these things, so there's distribution list here. There is no distribution list in Entra. There's distribution list in M365. There's the dynamic distribution list in Exo, in Exchange, but there is no dynamic distribution list in M365 and not available in Entra Admin Center. Now, what is the difference in creating M365 group that we are creating at this point from Entra Admin Center? So we're just going to move it down to M365, and then we want to call this group also AI show. Let's just call it underscore. We can call it underscore Entra. So when we call it underscore Entra, so we see that it's just here, and we see description. Of course, it is important, but at this point, because of time, we can just quickly move. Microsoft Entra role can be assigned. So I said we're going to look at this. So for now, let's leave it at assigned group. We are going to go to dynamic user later in this show. So let's just keep it simple. So what I want us to look at is that, of course, you can see that I've not added anything. There is no member, there is no owner on this group, and I have option to, of course, I can do owner, right? No owner create selected, no member selected, yet I have the option to create. But remember that in M365, I did not have the option to create, to go on without adding a member. Now let us see here. AI show Entra. This is the one we created from M365. You know it will replicate here. So if I come to show now, you would see that if I go to owners, I am automatically going to be seeing mod administrator as the owner of the group because he's the one who created the group. I want you to be spotting out these differences, but if you go to M365 and then you go to search this group out, you will see that the Azure show that was created from here, is not going to be a member of that team. Neither is he going to be an owner in the first place because he was not even he was not an owner. So let me just quickly summarize what I'm trying to say. If you come here and create a group, it does not demand, it's not compulsory for you to have an owner before the group can be created. However, the admin who is creating the group automatically becomes an owner of the group. Now, let me quickly go to Exo Admin Center to quickly create an M365 group as well so that you just see the differences that are here. So add a group, and then we are just creating this, and we'll say M365 is recommended. So here you will see that as you hit on group, you see have option here to change them to dynamic distribution, mail enable security distribution, and then Microsoft 365 group, which is the recommended. Now look at it quickly. So if I do this and I do underscore EXO, you would find out that, yes, of course, I needed to do description, but there is no time now. So if I go to next, the same behavior that you saw in M365 is same behavior here that I cannot click on next until I add an owner to this group before I can move on with what I am creating. So I'm just going to add that guy as the owner of this group, and then I will do next. And then again, adding members is optional. I can just do next, and then the email address, I will just do this, and then I will do underscore exo, just so it is unique. Is it taking that? It's not taking my underscore. You
The
only,
space after the
oh,
AI.
thank you. So I'll put this here back. I'll just quickly do this. Of course, you can see that, is it public again? I can choose. Is it private? I can choose. I can decide to again leave it private or put it at public. And then once I'm done with that, create a team for this group. You see this is activated now. If I go and check, I will discover that the owner that I added to this group has a Teams enabled license. That is why you are able to see this button created for you. So if I go to Teams now, I'll be able to see that group populating as a team with general channel already created for that group in Microsoft Teams. So the same way we added member to the team, to the group from M365, from the same thing we would have done in Exo also. So if we want to add more owners, we can add owners to it. If we want to add members, we can add members to it. We can as well go to the owner, I mean the user, and then make the user a member of the group. So I just want to say all groups now, and then I will just paste AI show so that we can see that all the groups that we created are all again coming to the management console, because Entra Admin Center is the what's it called, the directory management, I mean, for every object in the M365. That's why you see the AI show is from M365, the AI show in Exo is from Exchange Online, then the AI show from Entra is from Entra, and all of them are showing up here as users. So I'll be rounding off now because I've just spent my 20th hour few minutes ago. 20th minutes, few minutes ago. So this is the document I'm following, and good 18, I was able to take my time to do like a hands-on and friendly documentation that you can put by the side of your screen and follow through. So to see where this document is, I will just quickly take you to my LinkedIn profile and show you the documentation quickly before I round off today. This is, sorry, I will just scroll down my page just so you know where to go get it. It's under my post. Come on, show up the 14 resources. Okay, so if you scroll down to my post of Monday, you will see that document there is just down below here. Come on, not this. Yeah, where are you? Not this. I think this is it. Yeah, this is it. So my post for 5 days ago, that was on Monday, is about 30, 50 something pages or so. So yeah, 53 pages. So you can just keep it by the side. It's actually very interactive, and I'm sure you would learn a lot from it. But we are going to be moving gradually with this document, and once before we finish it, I would have also added so that we can continue the learning process. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope it was educating also.
You're leaving the studio, Joseph. He just left. I don't even make that mistake. That was a great presentation. I guess he wanted to stop sharing the screen. And he went to hit leaving the studio, and I was trying to tell him. So yeah, that was a very great presentation, Joseph. I know you would probably watch this later and you would hear my compliment. And yeah, Frank, I think that should be all we have today.
Yeah, that's all we have today. So we'll be back here again next week at the same time. And thanks, Victor, for your presentation. It was very good. Joseph, that was a great presentation again, and looking forward to the next part of it.
Thank you very much.
So we're up on the hour, and we made some great records this week, streaming out to 12 different platforms, and we had 5 MVPs join us on this week's show. So thanks everyone, and see you next week. I'm just going to end the live show. So
Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.